Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Married Lifers
Welcome to Married Lifers and the Penitentiary.
from the penitentiary. You're funny, babe. So this week we're going to be talking about moves, um, and all the different ways that they affect both of us on both sides. What do you think's the major headache for you, babe, when it comes to moves? Like being moved from, let's start with from facility to facility.
From facility to facility,
Yeah.
I would say property, losing property, because in one spot, you've acquired a lot of property, and they have like the amount of stuff that you can have. Like, for example, here in Colorado, you can only have 3 cubic square feet of it, and that includes the clothes that they give you. So the green pants, boxers, t-shirts, and green shirts, and the coat that they give you, that's got to fit in there with the rest of your life. So, pictures, paperwork, anything else that you own has to fit in that 3 cubic square feet. And it sucks because, I'm doing a life sentence, and I would think that my life would be a lot more than 3 cubic square feet. So you always got to downsize, got to throw stuff away, send stuff out. And don't even get me started on when they lose stuff, because then they lose stuff left and right. So you can't go one move without losing something. So, like this last move, they lost my clock and my radio. So make it make sense.
How much was that to replace?
Huh?
How much was that to replace?
150.
For both?
No, just for the radio by itself.
And then how much was the clock?
About $10.
So everybody might think, like $10 isn't a whole lot, but he literally works like we do 5 days a week, all month long, and makes $9. It's roughly 9, right, babe?
Yeah, roughly $9 a month. Yeah.
Okay. So if they just, you say $10 isn't really nothing, it takes him 2 months to save up just to replace that one item. You know what I mean? If he was on his own doing it.
Yeah.
So I kind of tripped out on that because, like, you think, they should be able to take all their stuff, whatever they had purchased, especially hygiene stuff, and they can, like you said, they can only take so much in that little bag, and then the rest has to be thrown out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of how does the cell to cell stuff or the unit to unit work?
The cell to cell, for the most part, is you packing your stuff up and transporting it yourself. Again, depending where you're at, you know what I mean? Because in some places, they want to go through your stuff and inventory it, and then you can only have this, and this, and a lot of guys have excess amount of stuff, you know what I mean? So if you can only have 3 pairs of boxers, we probably got 9 pair, you know what I mean? If you can only have 2 bars of soap, we got 10 bars of soap, you know what I mean? So it depends, but for the most part, from cell to cell, transporting your property isn't much of a hassle. The only thing is having to uproot from one spot to the other, having to pack all your property, take things down from your wall, get your whole setup back in order again. That's a big hassle. It's just like being shut down when they come and tear everything up. You know what I mean? It's just a hassle. So it's just like you out there moving. Is we just do it a little bit on a smaller scale. So that's like my biggest pet peeve is to move. I hate moving in prison.
I know you do. I listen to you. It's just, I think it's the only thing I've noticed when you've lost like expensive property is when it's from facility to facility. Right? Because have you lost anything big moving from cell to cell or unit to unit?
Have a what?
Have you lost anything big? You know, like this last time was $150 for your radio. Like when you're moving from unit to unit.
Yeah, well, so like in Illinois, if I went to SAG, I would lose a lot of property. And it's crazy because they have to pack your property. They have to inventory it, and then they have to send it to you to SAG, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And all my shit would come, a lot of my stuff will come up missing. And then they'll say, they'll deny this, and that, but when you get them on procedure, then they'll be like, okay, well, we can't prove this or this, and, you know, we'll give you the depreciated value of all your property. Doesn't matter if your stuff was new or what, they just give you the depreciated value of everything. And if you had anything in excess, it doesn't matter because you can they'll only replace what you're allowed to have within limit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I lost like that. The Illinois Department of Corrections is notorious for that. They're horrible. They're corrupt.
Huh.
So you get moved there, you're losing a lot of stuff.
I hear stories like that from the girls on our Facebook groups too, where their husbands are being moved from facility to facility here and they're losing stuff. Like when they lost your stuff and I started calling around, I had to basically track it down. And when it left one facility, it's on the paper inventory stuff. But when it got to the next facility, they're like, it never arrived. So that the previous facility should be held accountable and they're not. They're just like, oh, well, so you know what I mean? Tough titty.
And then I file the grievance and they say, you didn't do something right, or there's no proof of this, or they come up with something else even though you found out all this other evidence that I had to go through. So in order to challenge it, I would have to file a lawsuit and spend more money than what my shit actually cost. So it's not even worth the hassle.
Mm.
But that's stuff we go through, and they wonder why we do the things that we do when we do. Because that's the shit that they make us go through and have to deal with when it's their fault.
And a lot of times I wonder if it's just them being lazy because you have a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? Just throwing it away and being like, I don't feel like fucking packing this stuff, you know what I mean? And then just toss it and be like, well, there's no inventory. We don't know what was there because that's not what they put there. That's not what they found in your cell. So.
And the same thing with the damaged property. So like, you know, they'll inventory your property and you'll get to the next facility and all of a sudden your TV's busted. And they'll be like, oh, well, that's how it was. No, it's not how it was. And even if it was, then you would have to document it. And if you didn't document it, then that means that's not how it was. But they got this little loophole for them. So let's say I had a brand new TV. I bought it yesterday, and I get moved this weekend, and they destroyed my TV, and they prove that not that they destroyed it, but that it wasn't broke when they inventoried it. Then they'll give me a depreciated value of it. Now it's become depreciated, so now they'll chop the price down in half. I spent almost $300 on it. They're probably paying me $100 for a TV that I only have for 1 week.
It seems like they're always doing weird shit like that just to get away with stuff.
Yeah. But that's a constant thing that we deal with in here. But some places are worse than others. So. Like, especially in the Supermaxes, when you're over there, you know, you get in them spots. They're notorious for fucking up our property. Like I said, Illinois Department of Corrections was one of the worst spots I've been to when it comes to dealing with your property. And then I hear like CST here in Colorado is another worst spot to mess up your property.
I think, well, CSP here is just bad. Like every story I've ever heard of it is just bad. You know what I mean? Like in every aspect, CSP is bad. But it seems like everywhere you went, like you've been here too, they do weird stuff because you think like we were talking about that too with the ARs, babe. Like the ARs for all of the prisons altogether, right? Like they cover all the prisons. But it's the way that they interpret it, I guess, because for every facility, they just do whatever they feel like doing. Like they don't follow the AR. And it's crazy because I think like that's a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now in the groups. Like that's a lot of stuff that's coming to light now that we have social media and we have all these facility groups that we have. Like everybody's starting to see like the nonsense that they're doing. Like before you wouldn't know that because if I just knew that, how would I know somebody else is going through the same shit? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, some places, being out of state in these different prisons, it's been interesting to see how they do some weird stuff. So, like in Arizona, they have universal rule. So they have DRs, and that's department rules. So that's governing law for all the joints. And then property, whatever's allowed in all the joints is allowed in every other joint you go to. You know what I mean? The only thing will be is a restriction. Like if you go to the Supermax, they might say you can only have this, this, and this. The rest of the stuff goes into storage until you go back to that other facility where you can have those. But if you go from one level 4 to the next level 4, it doesn't matter if it's in this city or this city, or this county or this county, you can have it. But like when I was in Illinois, I was in a prison up north in Stateville, and they sell blue sheets and blue pillowcases, right? And you can have 2 sheets, two pillowcases that you can buy, but they're blue, they're dark blue, and you can buy a white blanket. But then when that's all the way up north in Illinois. But then when you go down south to the prison down there, they sell like these light brown sheets. So the blue sheets are now contraband because they're considered STG because certain gangs use blue, even though they sell it, and you can only get the brown one. But if you have the brown one and take it up north, the brown ones are STG for being gang-related colors. So it's like a money thing. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a money thing where you go from one spot to the other. One thing's not allowed, but it's allowed at the other prison, and they just want you to rebuy it.
You have 1 minute left.
Yeah, and that's crazy because it's like they know you guys don't have any money, so at the end of the day, they're really fucking over the families, if you will. You know what I mean? Because the families are the ones that are paying for this stuff and, you know, helping our loved ones try to make it through and be at least comfortable or have the bare necessities of what you need.
Yeah, it's a task to deal with, no doubt.
No. It's a lot, baby. It's a lot.
Yes, it is.
Are you going to be able to call right back, or are you going to have to wait in line?
I have to wait in line.
Okay. I'll call him back as soon as you can. We're not going to stay on that long for this one, guys, because the phones have been crazy lately. I guess I'll explain that while you're off, babe, while I'm waiting for you to call back.
Okay.
Thank you for using Securus. Goodbye.
So right now, the biggest thing out here with these phone calls are crazy. Like you guys have noticed before that my husband can call back to back and call me right away and stuff. Now that the calls went down, so we were paying $1.78 for a 20-minute call. Now that it's down to 32 cents, right? So now everybody's using the phones and everybody's fighting. Like the thing that us, the family members are upset about is that there's tablets. They have tablets. They can have the tablets. They're giving us the runaround saying that the staff was supposed to be trained months ago and they haven't been trained. It's a 4-hour training. They haven't been trained yet. So they're waiting for everybody to be trained before they can push out the tablets. The tablets would help a lot because these, like daily, and not just my husband's unit, but in other units, like they're fighting over the phone. Like there's fights, there's all kinds of craziness going on because of the phones. And like you would think that they'd want to make their life easier too by, letting everybody have the tablets so that they don't have to deal with all this other nonsense as well. Because if there's a fight, like the COs have to get involved in all of that. You know what I mean? It's like things that can be made easier on the families, on the inmates, even on themselves, on the COs, they refuse. So if it's something that's going to be hard for the inmates, even if it's hard for them, they don't care. They want them to, have the worst, the worst time. Like everything is a struggle. It's nothing can be just straight, simple forward. Some facilities are worse than others. I know my husband's last facility, like, I guess because we knew everything around, we knew how to, like, I'll give you an example. So if my husband didn't get a JPay that I had sent him, I can call the mailroom in Lyman. They were pretty good. I call and be like, hey, my husband didn't get his mail. They would look it up for me right away and then say, oh, we're sorry, we'll send it back. We'll get it to him, or we'll just print it out again and give it to him. Right? No problem. At this facility, it's like you call and they give you attitude and they're like, well, he needs to follow procedures. He needs to file a grievance. He needs to put the exact day that it was sent and the time. And then he does that. Okay. He'll do that. And then he won't get a response. So then I'll call him. They'll call him down and be like, hey, you need to follow procedure. We don't want your wife calling down here. And he's like, I did follow procedure. I haven't got a response. And they're like, well, you got to wait. Well, how long do we got to wait? Like when that happened, it had already been like a couple of weeks. You know what I mean? And it's the same type of stuff with their packages. I had to call and complain last week. And she's like, you're going to have to bear with us. Bear with you for what? I was like, how much more patience do you need from me? I was like, Union Supply told me they mailed it out on September 22nd. It's now the middle of October. My husband still hasn't received his stuff. Like, what's the problem? You guys aren't giving it to him for free. I paid for it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand what the issue is. But it's just like, it's all the way around. There's always issues. I know from our end, as far as the family, and I'll talk to him about this when he gets on too. When they get moved, even if it's just from unit to unit, their phone system is set up for that unit that they're currently in, right? So when they get moved, they have to wait for their phone system to be set up in the new unit that they're in. And, some facilities are good where it's set up, within a couple hours. Some facilities, they'll take days or weeks. The same with moving. When they move them, they don't always tell them, hey, we're going to move you to this facility. Most of the time, they just wake them up early ass in the morning, like, hey, you're out today. You're moving. They did that to my husband. They didn't tell him where he was going. He was able to get a call to me to be like, hey, they're moving me. And we don't know. Like, I think the unknown for me is the worst. Like, I hate not knowing what's going on. I hate the unknown. Like, just let me know what's happening. I happen to get lucky with that one because my husband's, he's an interstate compact transfer, right? So whenever Colorado does anything with my husband, they have to inform Arizona because he's Arizona's. He belongs to Arizona. So, when they pulled this nonsense, when they moved him this last time, I kept calling the warden, everybody. I wouldn't get a call back. I called Arizona. And I was like, hey, they're supposed to let you guys know when my husband's being moved or whatever they're doing with him. And, I need to know where they're moving him. And I explained the whole situation about what happened. So he was like, okay. He called me back in less than 20 minutes and was like, hey, I don't know what this means. And he gave me the abbreviation for the facility. And he was like, but that's where he's at. And I'm like, okay, thank you. But for some of the other ladies, like I feel bad for them because they have to wait and wait. And then it's not like a simple transfer. They don't go, if you're in say you're in Lyman and they're moving you to CSP, they don't just go straight there like that. So they'll move them from say it's Lyman. They'll move them from Lyman, take them to DRDC, which is the reception center. Then from there, they'll stay there a day or two. They stay up there for a couple of weeks. Then from there, they'll pick them up and then take them to another facility. In this case, it was Territorial. And then he was there for the weekend. And then they picked him up on that Monday and they moved him to his new facility. And it's like he didn't know. Outside, if I wasn't able to get a hold of Arizona to find out where they were moving him, we wouldn't have known because Colorado didn't tell us. Arizona had to tell us. And that's sad. We're in Colorado. We should have that information, but I had to go to another state in order to find out what's going on here. You know what I mean? And for the other wives and, the other wives that I deal with and talk to, they just have to sit there and wonder, like, where is my husband going to land? Like, what's going on? Like, he'll call me from DRDC one day, and then the next day he's calling me from Territorial or wherever, and then he gets to his facility. So you just don't know. They just don't know till they get there. And I kind of understand the not telling them ahead of time just for security reasons, but to bounce them all over everywhere before they get to where they're going, you know what I mean, is crazy to me. But I think that's the worst part for a few people that I've talked to, at least a few of the wives, like just the not knowing about the moving. And then once they do move, that for us on our end, that's a hard part too, because then now we don't know if they're going to be closer, or they're going to be further. If they're further, that's extra everything for us. As far as, like gas and stuff. So I went from driving an hour, maybe a little bit, tiny bit over an hour and 5 minutes to now I drive 2.5 hours. You know what I mean? So that's what we have to deal with when they move. Then the other part of that is, they lost some of my husband's stuff. So, they barely have anything as it is. So I don't necessarily have to, because he doesn't want to be worried about bills and stuff like that has to be paid first. But, I had to get him back his stereo. That's all his radio. That's all they have. They have a radio and a TV. You know what I mean? And especially now with the way things are going out here, and it sounds like it's going out, it's happening in a lot of places, not just in Colorado, but, there's no programs right now. There's no classes. There's no programs. They're just sitting there. And my husband calls it dead time. He's just sitting there doing nothing. You know what I mean? You want to keep these guys doing something in a positive way. You know what I mean? Doing programs, doing classes, reading, something. So that's why it's imperative for them to have the stuff that they can have. So that ends up being, I don't want to say, I guess I want to choose my words wisely, but that's something that we have to bear. You know what I mean? Like I got to come up with that extra $150 that month so that my husband has his stereo back or his radio back. So he has, music to listen to, especially without there being programs and stuff like that. So that makes it hard on us. I think those are the two things that bother me, is the not knowing, and then, having to worry about replacing this stuff. And like, it's sad because they know damn well that these inmates don't make nothing. They make $9 a month, if they get a job, if they're lucky enough to get a job. And this stuff is super expensive. Like they're doing like everything out here, like how all the prices are going up for everything out here is the same thing for them in there. They don't get any kind of discounts. And at the end of the day, it's the families that are bearing these expenses. So, it gets frustrating for us on our end also. And then you got to worry about like, who my husband Sally's going to be, because in there they have their own things. Like they can't just house with anybody. You know what I mean? So then that becomes a problem and a worry. It's just stressful. It's a lot on both ends. I know it's more for them because it's their life where they live, where they're being picked up. They don't know what kind of place they're going to end up in next, or what, things they're going to have to face or deal with. And then the loss of property, and then, letting their loved ones know, if they have loved ones that care, letting them know where they're at now, stuff like that. It's just, with these moves, it's crazy. It's a lot. So I see somebody on with us. Who's on? Don't be shy. Leave a comment. So I'm just waiting on my husband to call back. Prisons are $1 billion industry. You would think they would do more to actually rehabilitate. But true will lead to less money for these facility private. Yeah, so we have 2 private ones here. And from what I understand, they were supposed to shut them down at the beginning of last year. They're still open, and those ones are the worst. Like, people, I'll be watching people in our groups try to figure out how to get their husbands out of those private prisons, because they don't follow anything. Like, they're the worst prisons to be in, from what I heard. I don't know, because my husband hasn't been in them. But yeah, you would think that they would focus more on rehabilitation for these guys then, but they don't. They treat them like shit, and they do the most to hurt them. I get it. They committed crimes, but they go above and beyond to treat them like shit and hurt them as much as they can, not realizing that one day this man's going to be free. You know what I mean? And you make them hard people, that you make them not trusting people. You make them be against police officers too, at that. Like, nobody thinks about that. CoreCivic owns those, I believe. They're inhumane in their management of facilities. Yeah. So I know that I agree with you on that. And I know it was supposed to be I have to look into it again. But at the beginning of last year, they were saying they were going to shut those 2 prisons down, and they were going to make, move the guys around to the prisons that are here. But I haven't heard nothing since. And they need to, because if these guys aren't following it, and they're making more money too. And it's crazy, because when you reach out and you ask for, like, why isn't there programs going on? Why isn't there this or that? They're like short staffed. Well, where's all this money going? Like, what are you guys doing with all this money? Because I don't know if you know, nephew, but like recently, it was like a couple months ago, they passed a law that we were trying to fight against, where the prisons got like $1 billion, something like that, here in Colorado. But where's that money at? We're still not seeing programs. We're still not seeing anything for them. You know what I mean? Anything positive. Did you see the indicted TV interview? Has a prison wife, house greyhound? No, I haven't seen that one. I have to look at it. He's good. He just called, but I'm waiting on him to call back right now. So that's what I was trying to explain with the phone. So before, my husband used to be able to call like back to back, but since the call amount dropped, it's crazy, because the calls were $1.78 for a 20-minute call. Now they dropped down to 32 cents. Now everybody wants to use the phone. So it's a constant fight. Like, he has to stand in line. He'll tell me, he's like, there's 3 phones, babe. Like, and there's 15 guys in front of me. So I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. Like, hopefully, that's why we have to. I hate it, because we missed our live last week, but the phone another phone broke in there. So it was like I was hearing from him once every few hours, because everybody's waiting in line, and then they're all fighting. So, I mean, unless I just get special guests without my husband on some of these times, like, I can do that. But hopefully, they're telling us they were supposed to have the tablets. They were supposed to have them at the end of this month, and now they're pushing it back till the end of December. And once he gets a tablet, then he won't have to fight. He can call back to back. I believe they pocket that money and take it themselves. Probably, nephew, like probably find out that all these wardens have these nice houses or cars and shit. Like it doesn't make sense to me because that and all of us were fighting against that, trying to make that not pass, but it did pass. So it's like, where's all this money at? They're barely bringing back in the family reunification visits. That's supposedly supposed to start next month. It was supposed to restart last September, and here we are a year and a month later, and they still haven't started. You know what I mean? And their biggest thing all the time is COVID. It's because of COVID. It's not because COVID's done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, stop it. Like, you can't keep using that excuse. Like, you got to get off your asses and do something. So there's a big meeting. I don't know. Has your uncle talked to you about that, nephew? There's a meeting December 6th where we get to go sit and talk to a bunch of the wardens and a bunch of the executives are going to be at that meeting, so we can get up and ask questions and talk and find out what's going on. Because I mean, it's crazy. Like, it's not just one prison. We're seeing all of this craziness. We have groups on Facebook where it's, you know, all of the wives are talking about how crazy it is. Yeah, I'm not sure if you got to reserve a spot in that meeting. I got to check on it because I finally got approved to have that day off of work so that I can go. Does Greyhound talk to any of his friends from DVP still? Yes. Yep. I actually talked to one this morning, so. It's crazy though. We were just talking about moves before you guys got on, just like the differences or what they have to go through when they have moves from cell to cell, unit to unit, or facility to facility. Like all the stuff that we go through as their spouses, family members, waiting to find out where they're going to land. America is 5% of Earth's population, and we have 25% of the world's incarcerated population. It's all about money, and it's awful. Yeah. So you're right. It is all about money. They don't give a fuck about them. They don't try to help them. And that's the crazy part. That's the part that I keep seeing everybody trying to talk about and fight for. Like me and Alicia talked about it before. When you get these juries, you know, like say for example, nephew, you're super smart. I know that. But say that you're put on a jury, right? You don't know a lot about the law. You know what I mean? So when you get these juries, it doesn't have nothing to do with the law. Like they'll explain some stuff to them, but they go off their people. They go off their emotions. So if they feel like, you know, the prosecutor was able to tell a good convincing story, and then they're going to go ahead and convict that person. You see this time and time again. You see people. I just seen something in the news about this guy that was wrongly convicted. He spent something like 16 years in prison, and then the cops killed him recently in Florida or Georgia, one of those states. But he was wrongly convicted. And if you go back and look at the case, like he should have never been convicted in the first place. But it's not people that know about the law that are on these juries. It's just regular people. They don't know nothing about the law. You know what I mean? They get this little instructions and then they just do what they feel. So it's pretty sad. And I feel like it is all about the money. And I've said that too on another interview that we did where it's like, it's whoever could pull out the heartstrings to tell the best story. And it's funny because when I was going to school for criminal justice and I had to do a mock trial, we were doing law stuff. And it was like, we had all the evidence, and because let me start off by saying my professor was a well-known defense attorney here. And she told us straight up, it's who can tell the best story. It doesn't have nothing to do with the law. She was telling us about one time, like how she was able to distract the jury because she was sitting there like rubbing on her titty and stuff. And, you know, they were like not listening to what was being said. They were paying attention to her rubbing her titty. So, you know, a lot of stuff got missed. that was just an example of how she can distract them, you know what I mean? And how it's about a story and not actually the facts. I saw that guy who got killed after getting out on a wrongful conviction. Awful. His family must have no faith in our judicial system. Jesus, I can't read today. Reasonably so. Killed by cops. Yeah. And that's sad because they took away a lot, like the good chunk of years of his life, and then to turn around and kill him for a simple traffic stop. Like, you know what I mean? I can imagine what that family's going through. Because you lose him on some false stuff for a long time, then you lose him forever. Yeah. Yeah. So if you look at a lot of cases and you start getting into the actual law and like, I said this before about my husband. My husband was convicted. A lot of it was based off of his appearance. So he has the brown pride tattoo on his neck. And they were saying that was a part of the gang. Like that was a gang tattoo. It's not a gang tattoo. Have you seen Cain, nephew? He's I think it's Cain Velasquez. He's a boxer or MMA fighter or something out of Arizona. He has brown pride huge on him. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean the gang. And it didn't mean that for him. It didn't mean that. He's just, proud of his race, of where he comes from. And because they told the jury, yeah, that's a symbol of that gang. And, that stuck in their head. So they're like, yeah, that's who he is. And he was convicted. You know what I mean? Off false information at that. Because that's definitely not what it stands for. But like you're poisoning the jury. You know what I mean? And again, that's a story. There's somebody told a story about him being in that gang, and that's the part of it. So he must be guilty. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's crazy. I got all off topic on the other stuff. But the moves are just, I go back to the moves because that's what we're supposed to be talking about. There are so many people who have been put to death by the law and years later are found innocent. It's the worst. That alone should be national news and a start to how we handle incarceration in the U.S. Yeah. Yep. You see that a lot. I mean, more than you should. Like, we should never see one time where somebody was innocent and they were put to death. They were on death row and put to death. And then years later found out that they were guilty. It should never be that. So that was an argument, nephew, in my law class. Like, you have to argue for the death penalty and against it. And it's like, when is it okay to put somebody to death? You know what I mean? I go back and forth with that because they say that, even if you let five people go free that are guilty and you get the one that's innocent and you let them go free, it's worth it. I know I'm not saying that phrase right, but it's something like that. Yeah, one time is too many. Yep. Definitely. So there's a lot of people that fight for that and saying that, that's not good. And like we should, I need to find the article and post it. There's an article where they're talking about the prisons in China and what they're doing and how their crime rate is dropping because of what they're doing with the prison systems. But the U.S. should take notes on the way other countries do things. You know what I mean? Because we're the worst for that. Or one of the worst. Hopefully my husband could call back shortly. So yeah, I don't know what else with the transfers are moving, because that's like we already touched on everything with it. Like basically, you know what I mean? Like the bad things on both sides and how moves affect everybody. I think the hardest ones though, I think what we didn't talk about is the state to state. You know what I mean? It's crazy when you have your person in the state with you and then if something happens and they move you out of state. I dealt with that. So my husband started in Arizona, and I've said this before. He went to New Mexico, which is closer to me. So I went from a 15-hour drive to a 5-hour drive. And then he went to Illinois, which went back to, you know, like 15. I never went out there, but I think it's like 15, 16 hours from here. And then now he's here. So the state to state's crazy too, because when they moved him, they don't tell you. They don't tell you what state they're going to end up in. They just end up in that state. And you don't know until he's able to call and say, hey, this is where I'm at. You know what I mean? So those ones are crazy too, because you don't know. Like when they were moving my husband here, they kept threatening to move him far east, like far east as you can go, New York, New Jersey, stuff like that. And so we didn't know. And they were like, we can't tell you. He doesn't even know till he lands where he's at. And he's just so happened to land here. And I was like, you know, by the grace of God, he was here with us. So we didn't have to drive or fly and do all this other stuff just to see him. I can see him every weekend now. But I think, just like I said before, like the unknown of the moves is crazy, is like the worst part for me. I don't know about anybody else, but that's the worst part for me. Like I can deal with having to rebuy his stuff. It sucks. And it's a hardship on the families for sure. But the not knowing is what drives me crazy. And then the purposely losing their stuff and you know, having to replace it. And then you just, you know, once you know, then you got all these other things to worry about after that. So if he doesn't call me back in the next few minutes, I'm going to end the live because I have plans with my daughter. But, you know, hopefully we can get back stable to being on every Saturday once the phone situation gets better. So right now it's not. And they're not talking about it getting better until December. So we're going to have to fit this in when we can. Between the phone sucking and him having a fight with them and me working 2 jobs, like it's just hard. So I apologize for us being gone MIA last weekend, guys. That's what we're dealing with right now. So has anybody else in here dealt with a loved one moving, and like what problems did you have when they moved? Like what is the hardest thing for you to deal with? Nephew, has your uncle always been in this spot that he's at, or has he moved around too? I think I've dealt with it all. I've dealt with the moving from state to state, facility to facility, from unit to unit, from cell to cell. Like my husband's been through all of it. Sorry, guys, these comments aren't coming on here right away. Anybody in here have to deal with moving and having to deal with anything bad that, you know, came about it? Okay, so he's been moved around too, from Canyon City and then to Sterling. So for me, where I'm at, like I'm in between Sterling and Lyman. So when he first got here, we didn't know where he was going to go because he was in DRDC. And I'm like, you know, everybody was thinking it was going to be CSP. So I'm like looking at the map to see what the drive was going to be and stuff like that. And then he ended up in Lyman, which is only an hour from me. Now he's 2.5 hours away. Has he told you which one he likes better? Because I'm sure nobody likes prison, but it's the devil that you know. You know what I mean? I know my husband wants to go back to where he was because that's the devil we know, but nope. Yes, my husband always loses all his stuff, and then it's just always so hard on him. Yeah, Stella. So that's what I was saying. Like for my husband, and then what sucks is that it's a hardship on the families because our husbands, you know what I mean? If he has a job in there, he makes what, $9 a month? Like, how is he supposed to replace anything? You know what I mean? So then it falls on the families. And it's like, these people know that they're gouging us. They know that we're the ones paying for all of this stuff. And it's unfair. You know what I mean? This last one, I was saying that my husband had lost his radio and lost his clock. And I'm like, the clock was only $10 and everybody might think, oh, that's only $10, but he only makes $9 a month. So it takes him 2 months to save up just to get a simple $10 clock. You know what I mean? So they know that it's us paying for it. So I feel like they're like, fuck it. They have regular jobs. They can pay all this money. You know what I mean? And it becomes a hardship on the families. Right? It's having to put all that money back for everything, and it's so expensive. Yeah. Yep. That's what I was saying. Like the prices out here have went up for us, and then I don't know what gives them the right to, like, it's like sometimes it's like 3-4 times what the price is out here, and it's like, why? Do you know what I mean? I need to get my husband a TV, and I was asking him, like, how much is the TV going to be to replace? And he's like, $280. It's like 270 something and some change. So rounded up 280. You go to Walmart, for instance. I went the other day and there was a big ass 55-inch flat screen smart TV for $250. And I'm like, seriously, dude, they get these little shitty ass TVs for close to 300. Like, it's crazy. And then I don't know why I do this to myself every time. I don't know if you do that, Stella, but I like when I buy him packages and stuff, I'm like looking, I'll get him the Old Spice shampoo, right? I'll go to Walmart and look at the price, and then I'll look at the price on Union Supply, and I'm like, seriously, dude, like they tax the shit out of us. And they know damn well it's us paying for it. And they know they don't make anything. So it doesn't make, like, the math ain't mathing for me. That seems like a deliberate way to make more money off the families. Yeah, that's what, yep. That's exactly what they're doing. I feel like it's a way just to get money off of us, because they know damn well our husbands. And then they're like, they can't be doing that. Then they do the stupidest shit. So like if my husband makes cards or say he makes something. Okay. So for instance, he had this made for me. I'm just giving you an example, right? So my husband had this made for me. It should be okay. Like he bartered whatever. He made this guy cards because my husband can draw and stuff. And they traded. He made me a turtle because that's my favorite. So if you don't have proof that that was your material, like the yarn and stuff, then my husband can't send it to me. Like, why? Like, why do you guys make everything so fucking hard? You know what I mean? Like, who cares? It's not illegal to have yarn and to make a fucking animal. You know what I mean? But if my husband doesn't have proof to say he had purchased blue yarn and green yarn, then he can't send this to me because it's considered contraband. You know what I mean? Like they make the simplest stuff so hard. Like he had a bracelet made for me. He couldn't send it out to me because he couldn't prove that he had the material to make the bracelet. So they threw it. Yes, I do that all the time, and it's not the same price out here. Yeah. And I don't know why. Like, I get myself so upset. Like, I'll literally get pissed off and be pissed off for days over it. You know what I mean? And I'm like learning how to try not to get like that or be crazy about it. But it's like, it's hard to. Like, in the visiting rooms, they have these long burritos. I used to get you guys these when you were little, right? The long red and green burritos. I went to Walmart and I'm like, they're $1.47 for a long ass Almonte red chili burrito. They sell them for $5 in the vending machine. Like, why? You know what I mean? They have these little ham and cheese sandwiches there sometimes too. They're $2.40 at Walmart. Same exact brand. I bullshit you not. Same exact brand, same sandwich, everything. And they charge us $5. A little pack of Castle burgers, again, $5. You can get a whole box of those, and it comes in like 10, 12 of them for $10. So I don't know why I keep doing that to myself, but I do. Especially like when they move and he loses stuff and I have to replace it. Like I was telling you, like with the TV, like I start looking around and I'm like, this is crazy. Like they're crazy. And they do this shit on purpose. You know what I mean? So like if your loved one has a background, say, for assaulting CEOs, they'll purposely fuck up their shit and lose a lot more stuff just because they know he has that background. And this goes back to the stuff that I talked about where they want to play victim and be like, oh, he attacked me. You know, I'm the good guy. Everybody should believe me. And because he's in prison, what did you do to make them attack you? You know what I mean? So now when I hear these stories about, oh, this CO got attacked and, you know, stabbed, I feel bad because it's a person, yes. But then I think, like, what did you do? Like, why? Because for the most part, if you're decent and you just do your job, you don't have problems with anybody. It's these ones that act like assholes, that talk to them like shit, that rip up their property and then want to play, oh, well, he was in prison. Like, no, they don't deserve that. They don't deserve you to do that shit to them. So what you get back is what you get. I don't feel sorry for you. And I know that kind of sounds fucked up a little bit or sounds harsh, but you gotta be a family member or, you know, a wife and listen to what your family's going through in there, what they do to them, the way they talk to them. You know what I mean? The way they don't give a shit about anything with them. Yes, they made mistakes, but that doesn't give anybody the right to treat them like shit the way they do. There's a difference between doing your job and being professional and treating people like shit. You know what I mean? So it's pretty sad. It's sad to think. It's sad to, for the families, it's hard. I know for my husband, he talked about at the beginning of this, like, you know, the hard things he's had to go through when it came to moving. You know, but I've heard a lot of his stories where just recently they shook them down and one of the guys had, you know, like a sack because he's Native American. They're not allowed to touch that or, you know what I mean? They purposely ruined the feathers, which is a big thing. I don't know, because I, you know, that's not my religion, but they purposely ruined his feathers and dumped out what was in that sack, which they're not allowed to do. And they know that. It's a part of their rules, and they still did it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you guys constantly do shit like that to them on purpose and then wonder why shit like bad shit happens to you in return. So it's sad. So I'm going to give my husband probably like 8 more minutes. I'll talk with you guys. And then if he doesn't call back within that time, then I'm going to end the live. Has anybody else had any issues with the moving? How do you deal with the not knowing stuff? There he is. If you're still on with us, Stella, how do you deal with the not knowing when they move, when they get moved? Sorry, this takes forever.
Conversation now.
Hey, man.
Hey, love.
Man, that shit's rough.
I know. That's why I was telling him what's going on with the phones and why we weren't on last week and why it's probably going to be a little bumpy until you guys get your iPads, Jesus, till you guys get your tablets.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of talking about them, you know, when they did your little shakedown and they messed up the religious stuff that they're not supposed to be touching, and they purposely messed up the feathers and dumped out
his medicine bag.
His medicine. There it goes. I just said his sack, but his medicine bag.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, there's rules with, you know, how they're supposed to do stuff. So, you know, that's a religious item. If anything, they would have to call the chaplain and stuff like that. But they can't just go violate it and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they do that stuff on purpose.
They did it anyway. So, but are you still going?
Yeah. So Stella
Okay.
just said, I hate the way that they leave us in the dark. Yeah. So that's what I was talking about. Because I was telling them about how when they moved you, how I didn't like on our end, it's hard because you know me, I don't like not knowing. And I was like, for a lot of the wives, they don't know for days or even a week until their husband gets where he's going and then he can call. I was lucky enough to be able to call Arizona, and Arizona got answers for me.
Yeah. Well, but you know how they try to do it, like, you know what I mean, like when they snatch me up, and I get, for the most part, it's like a security issue, you know, because they don't want nobody knowing ahead of time where I'm being moved in case somebody tries to, you know, do something crazy. So I guess that's how they think. But even after the fact, you know what I mean, they still will prolong all that, and they make it a hassle for us to have to try to get through to people and stuff like that. But luckily, I was able to let everybody know when I was being moved from one place to the next place, even though it was state to state, joint to joint within the state. So
Yeah.
So that is a hassle.
And that's what I was talking about from our end. Like, what's hard on us, just not like, you know me, I don't like the not knowing in any kind of circumstance. I don't like to not know what's going on. So I know one of the wives recently was talking about that, was upset that they snatched up her husband and she still doesn't know where he's at. But I'm like, you know, I was lucky enough, or, you know, used my brain and called Arizona and was like, hey, they, you know, they're supposed to be letting you guys know. I need to know where my husband's at. And they let me know. But the other wives don't have that luxury. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I don't want to make light of the situation, but I was such a thorn in their side. They didn't want to upset me any further, so they made sure to let you know what was going on ahead, right away.
Yeah, well, the guy we dealt with for how many years, like, you kind of build, I don't want to say a relationship, but with like a rapport with them. You know what I mean? He was one of them that just did his job. He didn't do no extra shit. He wasn't rude to me at all ever over the years. He just did his job the way he was supposed to do.
They know me for a long time. They dealt with me, especially Arizona. They dealt with me for so long.
Well, that's what I was talking about. I was talking about Tom. You know what I mean?
Especially that officer, because he used to work on one of the yards I used to be at back in the days, and then he made it to central office and became one of the big guys over there, and then became in charge of my moves. So he knew what's up.
Yeah. But that too, that's what I touched on too, was the state to state, because I remember I told you, your brother even gave me shit because I was crying when I found out you were here, because they kept threatening us to send you way far east to like New Jersey or as far east as you can go. And then we found out you were here, which was, you know, happy for me. Like, I was happy crying. Because of all states, you end up where your daughter and your wife's at. Like, you know what I mean?
It's funny because even for me, like when I'm in Arizona sitting there waiting, they're like, don't get comfortable. You're not staying. And I stay for a week. And then when they shoot me out of the state, they won't tell me where I'm going until I get to the airport. When we get to the airport, then I actually see on the little sign where it says the city that we're flying into. So I know the state we're going to at that time. But otherwise, they won't say nothing to me until that last minute as well. So
you knew when you were in Arizona that you were coming here? Like at the airport?
At the airport, yeah. Because Denver, it said Denver, Colorado. It said DIA, and then it said DIA on the little side thing.
What went through your mind when you seen that?
Huh?
What went through your mind when you seen that?
I was in shock because I was like, because the way they alluded, they're like, you know what I mean, well, we're sending you, well, hopefully they'll calm you down and everything will be all good, and so it was like I felt like they were trying to pacify me, but where can you send me that's gonna pacify me? So I'm like, you know, I'm not asking to be sent out of state, so what the hell, you know what I mean? And then when I seen it, I'm like, what the heck? because I thought I was going out further east or something, and then I was happy. I was like, damn, that's fine. I said, then I was just thinking about your guys' reaction, how you guys are gonna react to finding out that I was actually over here next to you guys.
It was a good reaction.
It all worked out. It was a bittersweet thing because, everything that I went through in Illinois with MCOs and shit, and then having to bust that move on them police. I mean, it was a sucky situation that, you know what I mean, that was violent, but then it got me sent here. So, you know what I mean? Like, it all came full circle. It all worked itself out.
Yeah. It was just crazy.
It couldn't have. It could have been a lot worse, but it ended up turning out for the best in the end.
Okay, baby, I gotta go meet our daughter, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off. That Bay Area's finest just said, "There goes the man, the myth, the legend."
There goes the what?
The man, the myth, the legend.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me now? Babe.
Huh?
He said, "There goes the myth, the man, the myth, the legend."
I'm still going strong. I'm still going strong all these years. I'm still going strong. Walking on my own 2 feet on the main line.
Has he seen Tino's paperwork?
What?
He said, "Have you seen Tino's paperwork?"
Tino's?
Yeah.
No. Not no latest stuff.
My nephew said, "Take care, Greyhound. Talk to you soon, Auntie." All right, nephew. Love you.
All right, now. Take care of yourself. Take care of the kids.
Okay, guys. So we're going to go ahead and say goodnight because I have plans with our daughter to have dinner. So she's already bugging me. Hopefully we'll try to be back next week. I'll put out the notifications. He said, "Check in with little bad boy."
We might even do another one throughout the week, so just be tuned.
Yeah.
All right, good night.
Good night. Text me, Brandy. Good night, everyone. Oh, I hate this part. Okay.